So today I'm going to be talking about the power of the artist slash photographer. Um, and it's a story I don't particularly like to talk about. But I've told it to people that needed to hear it. And especially in this day and age when we're so full of cameras, I'm like, yes. So I was in 8th grade, maybe. Yeah. No, seventh, going into 8th. No, 8th. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I was about that age. I was 12, and I'd been putting up with something my entire life that I was sick of. And I was in the yearbook class at a local school, and they were teaching us how to use cameras. And I just found my new best friend. Uh, I brought the camera home and proceeded to take pictures of what was going on in my home, namely beatings. And I took the camera, snuck it home, checked it out um, more than a couple of times, and I took pictures of bruises up and down my sister. I couldn't take the ones on me. um, and then I went in to discuss with a counselor kind of what to do about the child abuse that was going on in my home. And I didn't exactly report them, but it led to that. Um, I was asking for pamphlets or information, and because they're mandated, which I didn't know, um, they were automatically put on notice and reported it. Of course, my parents tried to deny it. Um, and I even got a call from my own grandmother. You lie, you tell them they'll take you away and put you somewhere, and we won't know where you are. And she was just scared of losing us. So she called back, and I'm like, I'm not going to lie about it. This is wrong. And I think what really snapped me was, and made me go in that direction, is that I had a sister that was 10 years younger than me. She was an infant, a tot. And she was about 2. And she was getting beat probably just as hard as the, I think, 8-year-old, my other sibling. And it wasn't okay with me. I wasn't going to let it happen. They could have killed her. And it was getting that bad. Well, it'd been that bad. And I remember when my first sibling was born, right before that or near that time period when she was born, my mother flew into a rage and kicked me pretty much, I think, almost to the point of unconsciousness. And, I still have problems with my rib. And I remember when my sibling was born that I was pretty much, very much, I'll take care of you. I'll keep it from happening to you. And I was very protective of my siblings. So, the power of a photograph, um, I can't even begin to tell you the magnitude of that. That, we have as artists all these two different tools to our um, to help us on our artistic journey. And I didn't take that class back when I was a kid to take these photos. But I also learned just how powerful a camera could be. Most people, you know, that I knew took pictures of people smiling, happy, good times, and um, when they were taking on the family, everybody, put on your fake smile and let's get through this, and me, it was used to document what was going on in my life, and what I was putting up with. So I've had situations where I learned immediately just how powerful being able to snap a photo, even if it's not a good one, can be. So there's a part of me that will never give up on art or photography. It's just a part it's been there for me in times when nobody else was. So I guess what I'm saying, sometimes it isn't always about money. Sometimes it's you really need these tools or skills that you're learning to express what is really going on in your life. The pictures ended up, they pulled us out of class immediately, me and my sister. And she's still kind of mad about it to this day. That I documented that. And they pulled her out and they took more pictures. The camera ended up, being collected and taken to, the office and, documenting what I could. Um, there was a series of beatings that happened in my home, like shortly before Thanksgiving. And I witnessed my sibling I got beat twice. She got beat 3 times, and she was half my size. And then the tot got beat as well. And I wasn't gonna. I didn't know what else to do. And the only thing I could think of was, you could check out the camera and try to take pictures of this and tell somebody. And I was really, really scared to tell somebody. This was a situation where it was more than just artistic vulnerability that we were talking about. This was, putting my life in danger, taking this huge risk that I wouldn't end up in the hospital over it. So there was this big fear of being cast out of your own family, but then, our um, unit of belonging, but in the same breath, kind of going, God, it can't get any worse than this. I mean, when I was little, and having survived being kicked in a corner and across the kitchen, I probably ran around with a broken. I still have, issues with that once in a while. Like, I probably walked around with a broken rib for until it healed. So later on, after my dad passed, because out of the two, you know, um, my dad would beat us with a belt, and no, he would not fly, he didn't fly into a rage, he was controlled about it, but he also did it out of anger a lot of the time, which is inappropriate. That, um, how do I explain this? There's just the difference in discipline that, like my mom would fly into these rages, and you didn't know if you were going to get hit in the face or kicked, or, just awful human being kind of behavior. And, I remember her screaming at me, "I didn't want you anyway." And me, because I was in an accident, which, I know my dad did. So there was a, he went way out of his way to prove that he did. And then by the time I turned 18, he divorced her. So I was pretty much what was keeping them together. And, you know, he she would fly off in rages, and he beat her up a couple of times, but it was usually, and I'm not justifying what he did, that it was usually after she did something so extreme that, just trying to push somebody to that point of explosion, like trying to make him jealous with the neighbor, just you're just enough, and by the time I was 12, I felt like an adult anyway with a baby. That I had these two other um, beings that somebody needed to look out for and be responsible for and try and keep out of trouble, because you just didn't know which one you would get. I'd much rather take the belt beating that was controlled versus the flying off the handle and getting thrown across the room, or, which was my mother. Anyway, after he passed, there was an inheritance, and, one of the siblings, the middle one, looked at me. She was drunk, seething. "You're a narc, you're a narc." Well, here's the thing. I don't have a problem in the world being a narc if it saves lives or documents something or gets a message out that something isn't okay in our society. My grandmother, at first, when it first happened, was really, I mean, probably in the first day, was really pissed that it was getting told. But in the same breath, she came back to me. Took her about a year to work up the courage to tell me, "I'm glad you did what you did. I'm thankful for what you did." And that seemed to be the messages that I was getting from most of the rest of the family is, "I'm glad that you were taken away. I'm glad that they got told you cannot do this." Um, the situation with my dad was, he came in, at there was a conference where, you gotta see your see your parent again if you want to. And my dad pretty much promised that it would never happen again, that he would never hit us, that he would discipline us a different way. And um, if she ever hit or tried to attempt to hit one of us again, to let him know. And it was pretty much, uh, he didn't say it, but it was, "I'll leave her. I'm done with her." So in the scheme of things, most of it, um, it kind of comes in with the alcoholic families. And my mom's dad was an alcoholic, and she never talks about what she went through as a child before her mom died. Her mom passed at 12. So there's this big part of me that has this empathy for this abuser. But, you know, there's still she flies into rages. She just knows she can't touch anybody this time. So it's more emotionally manipulative, like you know, trying to manipulate the situation after my dad passed, and getting this you're a narc and you're this and you're that and you're terrible and you don't deserve anything. And me just kind of going, frick, I'm the one that worked for all that, because later, after I got put to work and worked a lot. And that was kind of my punishment, but I was okay with that, working hard, really wasn't the problem. So a lot of, when I paint or draw, they're usually cutesy or happy or fluffy or lighthearted, and I hesitate, to do anything dark, because I discovered the power of that when I was really young. So the physical child abuse ended with me doing that. And I realized just, how powerful a tool that was. And, when I talk about belonging and fitting in, I've always felt since then like the outcast, or the black sheep, or maybe the white sheep in a family full of black sheep. But it did do one thing for me. I never regretted actually doing that. Um, I learned how powerful a statement you can make with your own art, and how it can protect you. So art for me and photography isn't hasn't always been about the money. It's been about coping skills and, a productive way to be in society and deal with all these nasty, harmful, screwed up feelings that you can have. So the abstract that I did, that I'm going to put this to, I think, it's called Scars. And if you look at it closely, it looks like your heart's being opened with by a can opener. And it's actually, a pretty cool fractal, that if you look at it, you look closer, you see the Madonna in it, or the woman in it reaching out, and, having gone through all this terrible, bitter, or could make you bitter person, um, the innocence and the purity of the intention. I had no idea at the time that I would hurt my parents' feelings. I knew they would get mad, but, and I needed to run for my life. In fact, that night when everybody was finding out, I packed both my siblings' shit up, and like, we're running away. I don't know where the hell we're going, but we're running away. And my cousin actually took us down to the police station, to deal with it, which was a safe zone. So there was years of, you're an narc and you turn them in, and blah blah blah, and like I betrayed my parents' feelings, and me just kind of dumbfounded with that dynamic going on. Everybody else on the outside world saying you did the right thing, for God's sakes. And, but me dealing with their feelings of betrayal, there was no betrayal. My dad was actually, I was close to him when I was little, and he was actually good with children when we were little, up until, you know, maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. And my grandma would, tell me stories about him being overworked, and how he got treated by his father, and how she literally hated my grandpa, you know, for teaching her kids that beating a child is okay. She didn't agree with it. And later, after the DCFS intervention, I was put to work pretty severely. Well, compared to other people's eyes, put to work pretty severely. At, after school and weekends, that's what I did. I worked. I painted. I did. I did all this stuff for the family in apartment buildings and helped contribute to our family income, which, to me was much better sort of discipline than beating me with a belt. And I was learning how to do something, so, I would paint walls and then go home and paint pictures. So scars is kind of um, my answer to that. That being part of a group can melee you, kind of, because you have to sometimes choose that maybe the people that are in charge maybe shouldn't be, or they got to find a different approach. Now, to my dad's credit, he never hit me again. Not with a belt, not with it. He'd sit me down and he'd talk to me for hours on end until he wanted to cry. But he never did, and he stopped any form of that going on in the house. He did spank maybe my sister around the age of 12 with about once, maybe, out of all those years. But it was like 3 strikes and scared the bejesus out of her. And, you know, you need, because she was struggling in school and not trying, and it really, he didn't know how else to get it through her head, I guess, because the groundings weren't working. I went through a lot of groundings. I mean, most kids back then in the 80s were the phone and, TV was the go-to. I get grounded from my TV all the time, or watching TV. I would get grounded from the phone, and I just sit up in my room and do art and express myself that way. So really, to my grandma's credit, and that, I guess she'd be my great aunt's credit, they gave me a coping mechanism that worked. So all these like strict groundings and overworking and everything like that, all it did was improve me as a person. I would read in my room, I'd draw, I'd paint, um, and really sit in there and better myself. And I started looking after the incident with the camera. I have tools in my arsenal. I know how to use them, and I will if you hurt me again. So after the incident with the sister, kind of spewing her, you know, her take on supposedly the family's take, which isn't, on what happened about me being a nerd. I just, she said it, and she, when you get that exodus, I don't know if some of you are too young to have seen it, but their head spins off and they got puke all over them and they just look ugly, gross, and awful. And, the ugliest face that you can come up with is what my sister was doing and spewing this "you're a narc" thing, and me going, I laughed. I couldn't help it. I don't have a problem in the world being that kind of narc, that, some of my go-to artistic talent went to saving your scrawny little neck. Shut up. So I'm not surprised later on that when I found the opportunity to work in a studio and it be about taking pictures of families that were happy, and most, like 98% of the people that came in my studio, witnessing families that were close and usually happy to be there, and really wanting to take happy family photos, that it just became a motto that it's about family, and that you need these pictures hanging on the wall of your kids and you and the love that you have. And I just blossomed in the situation, taking portraits of families and people, and to me it was pulling out the essence of who they were and showing it to them. There was, there's one lady that she felt ugly, and she discussed this with me when she took her photos, and I'm like, you're not, and I'll show it to you. Having that kind of power to show somebody a different version of reality is awing. And when she saw the photos, I mean, she was in tears. She's like, I look so beautiful. I'm like, see? you know? But I really think that people underestimate the power of art. Art is driving the internet right now. Whether it's photography, film, or just traditional art or digital art, it's that's what everybody's getting on to look at, and even telling the jokes. So, to address it for the last time, kind of the artist vulnerability, I understand what it means to be truly vulnerable. I understand what it means to use your art to express that vulnerability. And in the extreme version, just how scary that can be. But if you're going through something or you've gone through something, it's, you know, um, maybe don't, if there's certain people in your life you're scared for them to see what you're creating, then don't show it to them, figure out a way to kind of block them, or keep it out of those certain people's eyes, but, or ears. But I know that even talking about it to this day, that I can have some backlash from certain people in my family, and I've gotten past that a long time ago, that I don't regret showing my artwork or my documentation or doing the photography or doing a piece of artwork, that anytime that I've been put in a situation, art has defended me and given me a productive way to express what is going on in my life, or things that I would like to convey, or skills that I have to progress my life, to make me a better person. Because at some point, you outgrow the family that you were raised in, and you have your own family, and you look to, what would I want to teach my children, um, to have the skills to move forward in a place to express themselves, or an outlet, such as, even if it's just listening to music. I mean, I listen to headbanger, you know, really loud, obnoxious, and that's where, that's how I deal with anger. I dance it off. And what you'll find is most well-rounded people find an outlet for it. They run, they jog, they dance, or they do art, or they listen to music that pulls them out of a mood, or lets them get it out of their system so they can go on and have a productive day. So this piece, Scars, I really identify with. Um, it speaks to my core nature that I'm basically a pretty pure intentioned person with good intentions, and sometimes that can get chaotic or feel chaotic, but there's you know, you'll see the light kind of get through it, and there's a part of me that, this looks like a praying mantis kind of deal, and it may be kind of how I feel about my mom at times, that she just swallow you whole and not think about the destruction she's causing. When I did what I did, I didn't know that. I knew there'd be aftermath, but I didn't know what it was going to be like, and the emotional um, heaviness that was put on me when, as I was turning 13, would go on for decades. I mean, some people can hold a grudge forever, and later on, during this inheritance thing and me going into the photography and the art world again, um, I kind of was attacked financially through that. And, I lost a house over it, but it wasn't the art that was doing it to me. It was the fact that I was doing something good for myself, and finding, because I went through a year of kind of grieving and doing this artwork, this fractal artwork, and dealing with those complicated feelings. So yeah, I kind of got interrupted there, but I was finishing up anyway. So anyway, this is, it's a huge story for me to share, but this is kind of what scars are, this painting or abstract is kind of about for me, the devouring side of the mother versus the pure side of the mother, or yourself, and you know um, being okay with your intentions and knowing you did the right thing, and not swallowing your children whole or any of that. So it's a big statement piece for me if you look closely at it, and everybody kind of sees what their own take on what's in a fractal anyway. So this is kind of my version. It's very kind of cool, cold, or on the cooler side of, it's kind of on the cooler or more harsh metal, um, yeah, light and warmth, and how that all kind of combines, that there's just different aspects of it. Um, so yeah, that's my take on scars, and would love to hear what you see in the fractal or your feeling of it. But the whole feeling of it to me harkens back to that day I turned my parents in, that, or the harsher things that I've been through with my parents, and trying to get past the abuse and end the cycle. And if you're going through something like that, it's okay to let other people know and tell somebody and get yourself put out of that situation. And nobody should be left in an abusive situation, especially not young children. And that's my message about this piece. If you like what you're seeing, please um, subscribe down below. Give me a like. You can click on the bell so you can get reminders. You can follow me on Facebook under artistbydesign.biz. I'm on Instagram, and all the links are down below. You can tip me if you'd like to donate towards my cause of keep continuing to make great art for your TV screens. And I'll see you on the flip side.